Hey everyone, Coach Aero here. I'm just doing a live VOD review. I haven't done one in a while, but I wanted to do one of a pretty highly anticipated match, the London Spitfire versus New York Excelsior. It was pretty highly anticipated because, of course, you have two of the best teams in the league facing off against each other, and people trying to figure out where exactly London's at right now. Right, so it's a pretty fun match to watch. If you haven't ever seen the way that I do my VOD reviews, generally I don't go in and deeply analyze them beforehand. I'll generally watch it through, have kind of an idea of what happened, and then go back through and actually analyze it while we're happening. So my goals for these type of VOD reviews is two things. Um, Firstly, of course, I want to analyze the match because I always enjoy analyzing professional matches, be it contenders or Overwatch League. A lot you can learn from ways people play. Plus, there's a lot of scouting info that you can get off a team. And so also it helps if you're an up and coming team or coach to be able to learn how to do his analysis. So questions are always welcome. If you are in the stream, that I fully welcome questions. So that yeah, as long as they're fairly on topic, I'll answer them quickly and get to it. So to start, to preface this, there's two things I want to talk about beforehand. Specifically, I did choose Nepal for this series. I thought it was a very competitive map, an interesting series to look at, or an interesting map to look at. But I did want to cover Sombra, like where Sombra's at in the meta right now, because if you haven't been following contenders, you probably don't know where the strength of Sombra actually lies, and how she can actually be utilized in a competitive setting. So we'll cover Sombra, and then I want to talk about how I break down phases of the fight. You have a good idea of some of the terms I'll be using. So terms I'll be using are pre-engagement, the mid-fight, and the post-fight phases. So pre-engagement being where setups happen, where we'll be looking at where monkeys set up, where the D.va set up, what kind of flanks they're doing, what kind of pressure they're trying to do, and generally includes like the poking phase. The mid-fight is when the fight actually breaks out, when kills actually start happening and people engage. Then the post-fight is generally the cleanup phase, and doing all the stuff, prepping for the next phase. So to start, we'll talk about Sombra real quick. The buffs to Sombra made her kind of interesting. There's been a lot of flack from pros about it because it is a very punishing hero to play against. So to start, probably won't see Overwatch League teams playing a lot of Sombra right now because most teams, even though you had an off time, a lot of it wasn't really an off time. It's usually a break for the players, not really a chance to experiment. So a lot of teams probably aren't experimenting with Sombra right now if they hadn't already put time into it in the past. Of course, teams like San Francisco, like Shock, put a lot of time into DPS Sombra style comps for this meta. So you'll see them play it, but most likely you're not going to see too many teams do anything crazy with Sombra right now. So the strengths of Sombra, to really understand why it's so punishing, kind of got to go back into why dive originally became popular almost a year ago now. And so Sombra strength is punishing overextended targets or disabling a high priority target during a burst window. So one of the reasons why dive became so popular in the past, it had been comps where people were running Reinhardt, D.va, or triple tank, soldier, or quad tank even. And dive became popular because you could have high mobility heroes that could take multiple angles and get a lot of spam. And attention is a resource that's very important in the game. So being able to pull support's attention or tank attention to different directions meant that you could exploit someone who was either out of position or didn't have cooldowns or something. And so combo that with adding a Discord orb meant that tanks didn't have as much health, but also being able to build ults up quickly because you're shooting tanks with a lot of health. So dive became popular because you could get ults quickly, win big fights, and it was very fast and really hard to deal with compared to the tank comps that people were running. So the reason why Sombra is so powerful now is because when the DPS and when the dive comp is spreading out to take angles and doing their thing, Sombra can effectively force someone to being overextended without mobility. And that's super punishing and super frustrating to play against. But the most frustrating thing that pros were responding with was that there was a lack of counterplay to the hack. So one of the quality of life things that you'll see as a difference between contenders right now and Overwatch League, that in the Overwatch League patch, the hack, if it gets interrupted, goes on a short cooldown. But there's also a little bit of touch-ups with how the hack breaks over LOS. Because in the contenders patch, with the speed of hack now, plus the LOS grace period, and you factor latency as well, it becomes nearly impossible to counterplay hack. So like, just as an example, we did a bunch of testing where if a Sombra hacks a Winston and he presses E the moment he sees the hack, it's going to go through regardless. He has to have already been in the animation of putting down his bubble in order to LOS it. What you'll see a lot of contenders teams doing is just running at people with Sombra holding right click or mouse 2 to get the hack off without any repercussion, because even though it gets interrupted, it doesn't go on cooldown, which is a little different in what you'll see in Owl. Sombra actually have to pay a little more attention to what they're doing, but that's kind of the strength of Sombra right now. And there's a lot of different ways that people play her. You can run her in like a dive comp. You can run her against tanks. She's super strong, but unfortunately, we don't get to see it in this series. So just to kind of touch on why Sombra is so strong, that's why. It's because she's very punishing and makes it really easy to make people in a position where they're overextended. You can get a Discord on them. You can burst them down. It's super easy. So to set up where this match is at currently, where I'm paused right now, we are starting map 3, Nepal. New York is up 2-0 right now. London recently, in this series, they're playing kind of a different set of players. And so it's interesting. New York has been pretty much dominant over the past few games, most of the past season, the past stage. And London's kind of rocky right now. So the series does end up being a 4-0. But yeah, so going into Nepal, some of the things we're going to look at, okay? On Koth, it's our King of the Hill control maps. It's super important to understand where your tanks are setting up. So we're going to be looking for, before the fights start, we're going to be looking at where is D.va, where is Monkey. Those are the two things, like the two people that we want to look at most. And then we actually, I believe Pharah's played a bit on both of these maps, so we'll be able to look at how the Pharah's positioned. But before each fight starts, we're looking at where the tanks are positioned, what the win condition is of the comp, because that's super important to understand, and then what the strengths of the comp actually are. So we'll get right into it. Going into this point, we're on Shrine now. So we'll start with London because we're speccing who right now. They're running a Pharah Mercy comp with Lucio. So in general, London, a Pharah Mercy comp means that you can generally take angles to get to the backline easier. Now, it evolves a little bit with who your target focus is based on what the other team's running. If you're in a Pharah Mercy matchup, you can't just freely go into the backline. If they're running hit scan, you can't freely go into the backline. In this comp right now, as it is, this is probably one of the best comps to play against as a Pharah. So it's hard for Junkrat to hit pipes on you in the air. The thing is, New York has Jonak, who is extremely good at pressuring Pharahs, plus Meko, who is extremely good at pressuring Pharahs as well. So the goal for London here is going to be start by pressuring the tanks, pushing them back, and then finding a dive on the back line. Since they don't have a Lucio, they don't have low mobility, they can go quick and get a kill on the Zen before the Zen can kill your tanks. So alternatively, the difference is New York now running Zen Junkrat, which Junkrat's an interesting pick here. Junkrat's kind of unique in this meta because, first of all, he provides a lot of tank pressure because he can spam from LOS, and tanks are the name of the game right now. How your tanks dive, how the mobility is used is the name of the game. So being able to have a Junkrat that controls that tempo by pressuring the tank health is really good. And it's interesting because we actually see Junkrat used as a counter to Sombra a little bit, because Junkrat being an area denial hero, a lot of pressure. Sombras have to actually think about where they're cloaking, where they're teleporting, and how they're getting to the backline. If it's a backline Sombra, because Junkrat, excuse me, Junkrat damage boosted can one-shot tracers and almost one-shot other squishies. So it's extremely hard for teams to deal with if you don't know how to play against Junkrat. The thing is, he is kind of a medium mobility. He has a little bit of mobility, but he does have to give up damage in order to have that mobility. So New York's win condition here is pressure tanks, either kill a tank, or you pressure them out to where the Pharah Mercy doesn't have enough space to be able to do it, and then you can go for a kill on Pharah Mercy with a Zen Discord, damage boost, and D.va flying at them. So there's a couple options that we have. So I'm going to try to see if we get a decent camera angle and where the tank's set up. Fortunately, we don't have top downs. Hopefully, we can get them soon. But we'll try to see if we can get a good idea of, let's see, go slow, of where the tanks are actually going to be setting up here. So on this point, as Pharah Mercy, one of the things that we'll probably, we probably want to see them do is stay around the outside. You generally don't want to be in point because it limits your Pharah mobility, but you can kind of be on the outside shooting in, and then until you find that angle on the Zen, you want to look for the Zen being overextended. So it looks like New York is going to be taking the stairs angle here because they want to control point. Controlling point is kind of their winning condition because it forces the Pharah Mercy to come into point to them, right? So if you can bring the Pharah to point, it's easier for you to be able to kill her A, but also limits her actual effectiveness. So New York probably, we see their tanks setting up on stairs, Liberos on stairs, so their whole clump's going to be around here. So Hureg is going to have to get a flank on the outside, and it's going to be super important how we see how London's tanks set up. So this is kind of the name of the game. It's all on London's tanks to not die here before they can find their Zen. So Zen's pretty overextended right here, which is interesting. Well, not necessarily overextended. This is a diveable area is what I mean. We're in the pre-engagement fight. People are poking. So once Zen gets either London's going to dive on two scenarios. A, the Zen is super overextended, or B, New York's tanks are so low HP that you can just dive without them being a real factor because they don't want to die to the dive. So Pharah's going to look for damage on the back line. So he has this angle, and now New York's going to have to pressure the Pharah out. Okay, so this is good. They move back. So now we see them controlling elephant side. I think is good, but I still have no idea where London's tanks actually are. We've got D.va here. Where's Gesture? Where he's at? All right, let's see. All right, so this is interesting. One of the things that we'll want to look at now is ult percentage, because Hureg's obviously getting off a ton of damage, but Arc is healing it all up because they haven't been able to execute anybody. Libero's half HP. So they got damage on Jonak there, which Jonak being half HP prompts for the jump. My question, where did Gesture jump from? Did he jump straight from stairs? Okay, so he jumped from bottom stairs over, and then we see Prophet using blinks to get over. So their goal now is to try to kill Jonak in this burst window. This is what I refer to as a burst window now, where you basically have half a second to 1 second to get this kill in order to stay ahead in the fight. The one thing that's a little concerning with London's dive right now is where their D.va's positioned over here, which you can't see it because of my camera. Well, you can kind of see the name. D.va's over here on point, and Gesture's jumping on their backline right now. And everyone's attention is on Gesture. So if he can get this kill, it'd be pretty impressive. Jumps. He messes up, Hureg messes up his E. And they counter dive really well. So to go a little more into what I was talking about, why tanks are the name of the game. So tanks generally have two play styles. Either A, your goal is to pressure forward, just provide space for your DPS until there's an opening. Well, you have three. Okay, so three different play styles. Provide space for your DPS until you find an opening, and then when someone overextends, either they overextend, use mobility, or are low on HP, your tanks can jump in and execute. The second playstyle is a counter dive playstyle, where you're providing space and you're using your mobility only to get out or to peel on dives that are coming into your backline, right? The third playstyle is a flanking playstyle, where generally your Winston is going to be hiding and looking to drop and time it with your Tracer and whatever other DPS you have, whether it's Genji or even Sombra, to execute a support within like half a second. Enough time to where they can't react, and then you can use your mobility to get away. So those are kind of the three playstyles right now. We see London's playing the provide space. When there's a low HP target, they're going to jump in and try to execute. Whereas New York's playing a style where we're going to provide space, but we're just going to wait. We're going to make them make a move, and then we're going to counter dive and blow up their tanks, because they have a lot of tank damage with Libero. If he hits a damage boosted left click mine, the tank's pretty much shredded. Plus you have Jonak, who does an unbelievable amount of damage. Incredible Zen with a lot of really good aim. So they're pretty much going to be playing force them to make a move and then counter and clap their tanks. So Gesture's already dead before Huyel's anywhere even near him. So Huyel's near him now. This is pretty much already a lost fight, because now you don't have to execute pressure. All that New York has to do now is just stay alive and push forward and take control point. Once they have control point, London can poke and maybe get a cheeky pick, but there's almost no chance they're going to be able to actually win the fight and take control of the point. One of the interesting things about D.va in this meta, especially against the Pharah Mercy comp, I think D.va is the most stressful role right now. Off tanks is the most stressful role, because you have so much you have to pay attention to. You have the tank pressure thing that I talked about before, the three different styles. You have to decide that style kind of on the fly or against the team. It really just kind of depends on how your team works. But you have to provide space. You have to counter dive. Sometimes you have to dive. But if you're in against a Pharah Mercy comp and there's no one to deal with the Pharah Mercy, if you're not in a mirror matchup, if you don't have a hit scan, your D.va has to be the pressure on that Pharah Mercy. So D.va's super stressful role to play right now, and it's super focused on decision making. So if you want to see like really good decision making, keep an eye on D.vas, because they almost make or break team fights. If a D.va chooses the wrong thing, counter dives the wrong target, or dives too far and loses mech, you have defense matrix is so powerful, plus D.va does so much damage to tanks that it's almost impossible to win a fight without a D.va. You definitely need to commit an ult or commit something to make up for that deficit of not having those abilities. So I always enjoy watching the first fights, because I think they're the most even without ultimates, because it's great to see how teams approach setting up the fights without having to take ultimates into consideration. So the dive doesn't work for Gesture. He gets rocked because they're split on where their D.va is. He goes in too far. So now we're in the post-fight phase, where it's cleanup. And so now we get to see it go into the pre-engagement and see how London's set up. So now that we're in the pre-engagement, we need to take into consideration what ults are coming up. This is super important. New York has Valkyrie, and they're going to have Pulse Bomb. London has Barrage. So generally, Barrage against a comp like this, since you don't have to worry about someone contesting you in the air, what you can do is tanks provide pressure up front. It's super important that they don't die, that D.va saves her mobility and saves the matrix so that Pharah can flank. And if you can kill the supports, with Barrage, you can generally kill the supports in like 0.25 seconds if you time it right, if you're low enough, if you have the right distance. And then in that window, your D.va needs to be there to matrix you. So this is isn't too hard of a play to execute, but it's on your Pharah to get in undetected, and it's on your D.va to protect your Pharah once she's in. So we'll see what happens here. For New York, what they're going to want to do is just keep pressure up and then just wait. You don't have to force anything when you're on defense as New York in this comp. You don't have to force anything. So they're going to just let them in, use your Junkrat to spam, pressure tanks. If you can pressure tanks to where D.va doesn't have Matrix, or the Winston uses bubble, then you're golden, you're solid. So Discord on gesture, pressure. So this is actually really bad. Super unfortunate that Agapun shifted to the Pharah because it basically just gave away the flank. He needs to be there, but kind of unfortunate. So now they know that Pharah's right above them. If you're tracking ults, you know that they have Barrage. And there it is. There's the Barrage. It's trying to execute Zen. Doesn't get it. And Meko, like, perfect job by Meko. DMs, shifts at them, get the kill on Pharah. Now their main win condition's down. They do have Pulse Bomb, so they could turn around with a sick Pulse Bomb. But they're leaving. Yeah, tanks are leaving. Wait for next. You don't have the Pharah ult anymore, but you can still get Pharah ult pretty quickly. You can poke. What London should be doing now, the win condition for them is going to be just like their original fight. Poke. Your Pharah can shoot from distance and not be pressured at all. The only pressure they're going to have is Jonak, which is pretty hard to hit Zen Orbs from super far away. Granted, it's Jonak. But just poke until you find someone that's 1 HP. And then you can force out New York's ultimates because they are going to have Trance, they are going to have Valkyrie, force out an ultimate and try to capitalize. So we'll see how they do it. Prophet is in the back line. So this is a good opportunity. If he can kill the Zen or force a Trance, this will be really good for them. Gets him low. He doesn't have Trance yet. And Pulse Bombs. He hits Meko. Okay. Okay, so same thing that we talked about with tanks. Pressure, you get the Zen low, and then tanks are jumping. Now they did get Trance out, which is good. Gets trapped, which is super unfortunate. But they're committing Valkyrie to this. So if London's committing Valkyrie to this, that means one of two things. They don't want to be on Pharah Mercy anymore. They want to swap to something else, and so they're going to Valkyrie, just try to win the fight off of Valkyrie. Or they believe that they actually can win this if they're not ult tracking, or they think that they can win it through despite the ults. Committing Valkyrie, gesture gets trapped and immediately gets blown up, which is kind of what you expect with this comp that New York has. Okay, so closer to New York's backline. Prophet's on point. Fair Mercy in the air. We don't know where who y'all is. Okay. They're getting out. Now we're in the post phase. This cleanup. So at this point, if you're a team, you're talking about what ults do we have? What ults do they have? How are we going to overcome this ult deficit or whatever? New York has higher plus Valk, which is super good for the last fight. It's 80%, which means if New York wins this fight, it's round one's pretty much theirs. So London has to commit everything to win. Ideally, if they can win it without committing everything, that's good. But they just swapped to McCree Zen, which Lucio McCree Zen isn't super popular right now. They're keeping Lucio probably because it's so close to beat. But if you're running McCree, it's probably a comfort thing. Either say Biolby is having too much emphasis on their backline, which probably isn't the case because they were running Fair Mercy, or they're concerned about him. And then they want to pressure tanks. So they're going to be looking for a Discord, either Discord and try to 2-tap a DPS, or default to shooting tanks. So, see, this is the view that I want, man. This is so good. I want these. We'll see how the positioning happens. So they're just going like straight at point. which I don't know that you have. Hey, what's up, Battle Roy? You don't really have a ton of options as tanks right now, given the percent situation. You don't have a lot of time to set up a a super good play, so you kind of just have to force it. So tanks are on point. Who is already super low? Which when you're running Lucio Zen is a ton of damage. Okay, Zen provides so much damage, especially if your Zen can hit shots. The downside to this is that you don't have a lot of raw healing. So it's very, very, very important that your tanks do not take unnecessary damage. It's so important because you can't just auto heal it with Mercy or Moira. So this is good that New York, the way that they're positioning Jonak and Arc, they know Jonak. Like they're playing around Jonak to be able to get picks on this intro, which it's good. Play around your strengths. Arc's almost dead. He probably got discorded and tapped by Hagapin, like Hagapin's ult charge. Hurag hasn't really hit many shots. So we'll see how their tanks advance from here. We all needs to get healed as they engage. They have beat. All right, so the question for your supports now is when and where do you beat, right? Do you beat right off the bat? Do you beat to try to not die to tire, which is super risky? I don't recommend doing that. Do you beat to counter when the Valkyrie comes out? What's your play here? So as the Lucio here, you probably don't. I don't think they have many options. You got to beat right off the bat, so that way your Winston can build his ult and jump and try to combo the backline with the ult. There's the beat. It saves Agapun. Hurag dies to tire, can't kill the tire. That's pretty much over. Mano did a good job of focusing Hagapun there. Down. So that was one of those situations where we saw tanks. Let me go back because I didn't really talk about it. So talking about tank setups. I told you the three ways that tanks play. Either and so this is one where Mono is playing sneaky, and so you can play a sneaky flanky play style more comfortably if your monkey has ult, and he's going to get ult within the first couple seconds of tasing somebody. So what he's going to do is when tanks move in, all he's going to do is drop and walk at the back line. Super important that you save your jump because if for some reason you get poked out as soon as you drop, you want to be able to use it to live enough to get your ult. Or you can use it to jump, do a combo on one of the heroes, ult, and then combo again. The monkey combos I'm talking about, if you don't have ult, jump, melee as you land. So you get animation cancel damage, plus the tase, it's pretty bursty. And then when you primal, you can hit them, jump, and then your jump pack damage lands, you hit them again, and you can even get 2 registers on your hit and do a lot of burst damage as monkey. So that's why primal's so strong right now. Plus you have Sabiolbi's just dueling Prophet to give space for Jonak. One of the interesting things about New York is that with such a strong Zen, you don't always have to use your Tracer super offensively, right? Tracer has different play styles based on what you're doing, just like Monkey and D.va do. So maybe your Tracer duels the other Tracer so that your backline isn't pressured. Maybe your Tracer wants to go super deep to put pressure on their backline. Or maybe you just want to focus tanks and try to burn a tank down, force the intention on healing the tanks, and then capitalize on someone overextending. There's a lot of different ways that your Tracer can play, just like a lot of different ways that your Monkey can play. It's super interesting. New York, with such a good Zen, they can have Sabiolbi just focus on dueling Tracers. You give him a Harmony, you let him duel, and you open up space for Jonak to just completely rack everybody, which is a pretty interesting playstyle. Libro's just hiding so you can tire. And Mecho's playing more of a protect their Zen style. So New York does a really good job of enabling their Zen. So this comp of pressuring tanks, dueling Tracer, basically just makes so much space for Jonak. And that's kind of the strength of Zen right now. If you look at supports in the meta, outside of Zen, I think it's pretty balanced because you can mix and match your combos to either be protect the Zen with a Lucio, Ana, or Mercy, or you can do like a Lucio Moira and go full healing. There's a lot of different things you can do with support your combos right now. But yeah, overall, a good play from New York. Their win condition was pressure tanks, don't give don't give London a chance to engage with full HP, and don't give London a free flank on the back line. So you protect your Zen, you pressure tanks, and you're going to win with the kills that you get off of it and the ults that you generate. So pretty clean map 1 for them. So I'm just going to move on. Move on to map 2. Round 2, I guess. So Sanctum. Sanctum's an interesting one because it enables a lot of heroes that you don't normally, they don't necessarily see in play. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. Overwatch is pretty diverse right now in the meta. Granted, teams aren't really experimenting with Sombra like we talked about, but this comp really frustrating comp to play against. And I remember watching this, and the rollouts that they use is actually really interesting because for the most part, most teams are going to try to take control of the high ground ledge over here for a couple of reasons. A, it gives good sightlines for your Junkrat Widow. B, it's really good for being able to pressure and pull people off the map, another win condition that you have. But New York and London do something different. So London actually, they send their Orisa and Hog to point, and then they put their backline on the high ground and try to look for angles. So I'm curious to see what kind of scouting they were doing that made them think like this is how we're going to beat the comp. Not that it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't necessarily think many things are bad. They're just good against certain. And then New York's is very interesting because it seems pretty clear that New York knew exactly what London was going to try to do because they take control of this mega side. And I remember watching this and just being like, this is interesting. See the way that they go about this. So they take control of this right here. So get a good view of the tanks. All right, so you see Orisa's right here on point from London. Roadhog's right here, and backlines on kind of on the high ground corner. So Hog's now over here, and we see Orisa and Junkrat immediately go back to their side. And so instead of normally, what you see is the map kind of split in sides where if you were to draw an imaginary line down the middle, this half of the side is one team, this half of the side is another team. But we don't see that. We kind of see a line drawn down the middle the other way where the mega side is controlled by one team and the ledge side is controlled by another team, which is pretty interesting. So New York has Orisa here with Sabiel behind the shield. So the fact that London doesn't have a shield to hide behind for their TPS really means that New York's at a super big advantage. The way that London beats this is A, everyone goes to somewhere that's LOS and forces New York out of there because New York has to touch the point at some point, right? They need to force New York out of that hole and not get picked. Or they need to like swoop in and like kind of flank and dive. Which is kind of hard to do. And New York thought of that because their Hogs waiting on the flank for anyone that walks in. So should Junkrat try to do a cheeky flank, try to get a one-shot on someone, he can just hook and kill him. So London's best play right now is to LOS, wait for them to come to point, and then you have to capitalize on them not being set up before your tanks die on point. So the comp strength of this, one of the reasons why teams run this is because it's very, very, very forward focused in pressure. Okay, so it specializes in dominating the pre-engagement phase of this fight. Thanks, man. I appreciate that comment. I hope to do more in the future as well. I plan to. I'd like to. Anyway, so it dominates the pre-engagement here with this comp because with Junkrat, with Zen, with Widow, you have a ton of pressure where you can get picks before the fight actually starts. And then Orisa and Hog combo, the reason you run it is because when people think they're safe behind corners, you can, get basically a free kill on someone if you time your halt. Plus the hook right, you can pull someone out from out of LOS, get a kill. You also can pull people off map. There's a lot of utility in the pre-engagement part of this fight. So the way that you beat it is, in this case, mirror it and do it better. Or you take angles because the comp is so frontward focused And if you take angles on the side, it's really hard for that comp to deal with it without repositioning. So in this case, London needs to not be in LOS right now. They move forward, playing this. All right, so here is the interesting part because Arissa's shield was originally here protecting the Widow and Zen looking for picks. And they move Mono to point just to try to pressure, not give them point for free. Mono needs to die there. Hands down, Mono needs to die. Now, the part that's also interesting to me is that Prophet's not there to kill Mono. He's underneath. And then Libero just kind of flanks him. They can't capitalize on the Zen on point, and then you lose your backline because they don't have shields. So I kind of understand what London's wanting to do if they feel like they have the better Widow or they have the better Junkrat. Maybe you can win pound for pound, but New York played that way better. They had better angles when they had a shield to work around, where London didn't have their shield because they put their wrist on point. And they had the right idea, but they needed to move their backline to not let their backline die. So that was kind of a convoluted way to say that. Let me know if you need me to expand on it more. I'll explain it better. But so when you have this comp, it's super hard to retake because you need to get set up. And where I think New York goes wrong here, because they lose this, they actually lose this point. I remember watching this, and this one is to me, this is pretty straightforward on how this comp wins or loses. New York should be pressuring the pre-engagement areas. So that means the chokes here. I don't have a pen to draw it, but the chokes coming out of doors here and here need to be pressured pretty much at all times because that's where the comp excels. And this comp, it's really hard to retake because you can't get set up. So it's doubly powerful in that regard, if that makes sense. But they sit way far back. Everyone's kind of flanking, not really playing behind the shield. Echo gets out. Where was... Okay, I need to see where... We can see where Prophet and Jonak actually were. The Prophet's right there on point now, or coming in. Okay, so Jonak is way pushed up. Look at this. Way pushed up. Which I don't necessarily know is the right call. I would like to see them play a little more passive and focus on spamming chokes and then playing the fight from there. But pushing up, looking for a pick, kind of costs them here. London is running the D.va, so you can just or Matrix and push in. I think that this was more New York kind of playing this wrong than it was necessarily London playing it right. I mean, London did pretty well capitalizing on them being split, not being clumped. And now it's flip-flopped. So London should be pressuring chokes, which they're doing right now. And New York has to try to get in. Now, they have ults, so you have a little more options of what you can do. You can try to open it with a tire pick or whatever. So good heads up by Prophet to see the flank here and then not get one tapped or right clicked. And then to kill Mecca. Good. Now they're going in without a hog. They can probably res him. Yep, there it is. There's the res. But I think this is really good positioning by London. You pressure chokes and just slowly fall back. The main point is that you need to be set up to kill them before they get into you. Get into your clumps. Take it slow. Wall hacks mean that they can't really push in. And that's actually a really sick shot. Prophet. Okay. New York's down a person again. So let's recap this. To start, New York wins the fight, gets the point, right? Second fight, they try to do a flank and get punished for the flank. That fight, you know, they're coming back, they're getting ready to go again, they get walls, and then immediately punish, say, BLB. So this is really good heads up play. This is how you beat New York. If you can scout them, you know exactly who's flanking, and you can exploit people that are out of position. This is really good. So now you're already at 60%. You still have all your ults. London's in a prime position to win this. The way New York's going to win this is going to have to be using a support ult and moving in, and then your Junkrat has to get a kill. Now, alternatively, you could swap comps to like a dive style comp, tank angles, and win it, but you're at 70%. You know, they have ults. It's more worth it to kind of go for an ult fight and use it and try to win it. So, looking at the ult situation, London now, same thing that we talked about. We want to pressure chokes, but use your ults to do it now so you can commit. If someone gets low, you can trance. The big thing is to not die to the Junkrat Tire. Junkrat Tire has to die without, or has to die. It has to not give up any kills to it. So we'll probably see, since. So in terms of ult management, one of the conversations or things that I think about a lot is you realistically are only ever going to get one supercharger on this map right now. The question is, do you blow it early and try to build another? Maybe you get it for overtime fight, or do you blow an ult that you're probably more likely going to get a second one of, you know, trance, whatever. So I'm curious to see how exactly they use London uses their ults. Oh, here's a supercharger now. They're going to use supercharger. A lot of pressure on tanks, which means, you know, New York has to be careful about how they get in. The bro tire. Okay. Tire didn't kill anyone, which means now it's extremely hard for New York to actually take this. And Jonek dies. That's pretty much over now. They didn't get their trance off. They didn't get their supercharger. They didn't. I mean, whole hog is. The D.va being able to, the way that they use their D.va to kind of enable their DPS more so than use the Roadhog to pressure and punish. You know, I mean, interesting series of events by London. I personally don't really like playing these comps or seeing these comps. I don't think they're super exciting. They're interesting, but they're kind of weird. Let's move on. Very forward. It was a good job by London. I think New York was a little cocky with their play. All right, moving into Village. Village is my favorite Nepal round of all of them because there's so much that you can. I think this is a for the most part, it's a pretty balanced control map. And I really like the options that you. Just looking at New York even being willing to open Bastion kind of shows that there's a lot of options that you can do. You see May here, you can run Sombra, you can run Pharah Mercy, you can run Hit Scan. Now, the key to the Bastion here, okay? So, Bastion can completely rip apart that Pharah Mercy. So, the moment that London scouts this, the win condition now becomes: do not die to this Bastion. Find a flank, find an angle, similar to the comp that we just talked about on Sanctum. It's very like one directional focus because of the way bubble works. People are clumped. How they use their attention and pocket this Bastion is super important. If you can get angles and force the Bastion to not be able to have to focus one target at a time, and if that target lives, you can exploit this Bastion pretty well. Like I said, attention's a resource. Abuse it, abuse it, abuse it. So the way New York wins this with this comp is they have to get Bastion to get a kill. So they can set up top here and look for maybe a premature dive from London. You can completely destroy a tank. You can move to point and try to like hard focus one direction on point, force the tanks into you, blow up a tank. They're running on instead of Mercy, which means more heals. You have the Nano Bastion combo, but you have, if someone dies, you don't get the res. You don't have Discord, but you're assuming that without the damage from Bastion is enough to make up for Discord. So London's taking this slow. This is good. Exactly what you want. So we want to see, where are London's tanks here? Can we see where the tanks are? Really? Okay. At a point. Everyone's in this clump. There's Prophet. I have no clue where the tanks actually. You should. All right. T1. Prophet's, blinked around to the side. That's where D.va's looking. There's a Pharah on one side. This is really good angles. All right, and they kill the Lucio. And okay, so there's the dive. Happens. It's really good. So when you're a tank here, like I said before on Shrine, tank play is so important, especially your monkey. Very good job by monkey not actually doing anything until they had, some kind of pressure or something. Because with Bastion, your matrix doesn't last long enough. Your matrix and bubble together doesn't last long enough to prevent a full Bastion clip, right, and not die. So what they do, they get to pick on Arc. They use their D.va to soak some damage, and then their monkey jumps in, and they immediately close on this. So they have angles from everywhere. Bastion can't just shoot in one direction. He has to turn, which is really good. Brian's not really doing anything because he's just trying to protect the Bastion. And they immediately lose their supports. Very good job from London. The splash damage plus the monkey means that supports can take a lot of damage. That was good. That's exactly how you beat a Bastion comp. All right, cleanup phase. New York is swapping. Okay, so this is an interesting conversation now, because they've swapped to Pharah Mercy. So the Pharah Mercy mirror is a really interesting thing to me, because the way that you win, your win condition, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, right? Super minor things that make or break the fight. Now the difference in the comps is the Zen and Lucio, right? New York's running Zen, and probably for a couple of reasons. First off, it's Joe Neck, so you want him on Zen. But what it means is that you have a lot of damage on tanks, a lot of tank damage with the Discord plus the Zen, and it ends up being that London has to kill the Zen before New York can kill a tank. So New York's job now is to enable their Zen enough to where they can kill the tank, where Zen can get a lot of value, kill a tank, then take over from there. Now, in the Pharah Mercy duels, you generally have a couple ways that you can go about it. Either A, focus tanks, and completely ignore the other Pharah. Some Pharahs do that. You'll see some Pharahs just go super aggro and try to take a Pharah duel and try to win the duel outright if they're super confident. But the ones that I think are most effective is where, like before, attention being a resource, you manipulate that. Shoot tanks while you're creeping up on the other Pharah. Because a lot of Pharahs probably aren't going to fight unless they're being pressured. So what you can do is shoot tanks, move your Pharah up, and then try to get a quick 2-rocket kill on a Pharah Mercy, either one. Alternatively, you could try to bait the other Pharah into a duel, and while that Pharah is trying to kill you, you're shooting tanks getting value. There's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of minute things that really work out. Now, which comp is better necessarily? Because of the strength of Zen right now, I think the Zen comp is better, especially because you have Jonak so strong on the hero. He hits a lot of good shots and has really good Discord targets. So I think New York has the edge. And I say that, and Zen gets killed. So this is the win condition for London, right? If London can kill the Zen before they lose a tank, London wins these fights. And the pulse bomb gets eaten. That's really unfortunate for London. Really good heads up play by New York, turning something around that was bad, and Sabiolbe comes in for the duel. If you're playing against New York, you should probably expect Sabiolbe to be dueling your Tracer. So if your Tracer's going for the backline, you need to expect to have to deal with Sabiolbe as well, rather than mirroring. So really good job eating the stick and then capitalizing on Tracer being low on mobility. That's one of those engagement triggers, right? If someone's low on mobility, if they're out of cooldowns, if they're low HP, that's something that you can engage with, capitalize on. All right, so now London's tanks have to pull back because they don't have the Tracer anymore. Sabiolbe is now free to basically do whatever he wants in this fight. And you look where the rockets are coming from. Librio's already shooting down on backline. The advantage that you have is that Lucio is a target that you can choose. A lot of teams don't do it because it isn't always easiest to kill Lucio if Lucio is really good at using the wall speed boosts. But without a Tracer, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So they're going to be shooting tanks and Lucio, basically just the clump, try to get damage as much as they can. And there it is. So they get Jonek down. That was a good coordinated dive. They pretty much just send all their tanks on while the Pharahs focus somewhere else. Hard dive the Zen. That's London's winning condition, right? So they're Valking. And they get the Zen. London's not out of this fight yet, right? Jonek is such a big impact, or Zen in general, such a big impact hero in this comp, that now London's pretty much even the odds, even though they don't have a Tracer. Tracer will be back soon. But Sabiolbe does get the mech. And like we mentioned before, D.va being the most important hero because of decision making. If you don't have a mech, pressure on Pharah isn't as high. Plus, it's really hard to do more damage to tanks. The bomb comes out from Meko in order to get his mech back. Here's the counter dive. But right now, that and he was back again. New York's still in command of this, right? Neither of them have divas. Their Zen's going to be back soon. Okay, so let's take a moment in the fight here. Gesture, super low on HP. He did use Monkey Ult there in that fast dive. I didn't call it out. Sorry about that. So let's see how they're setting up. I cannot tell where any of the tanks are in this, other than Gesture. All right, so here we go. This is good. One of the ways that you can counter Sombra, or not Sombra, Pharah on this point is to go to point, force them to have to contest. If Pharah has to shoot on point, he has to come down, which makes her unkillable. You do have to worry about, though, if Pharah's not down there, if you don't see her, you can do flank plays with Pharah with Barrage. But they kill a tank, and this is New York's win condition, right? Kill a tank, kill a tank, kill a tank. Barrage comes out. They don't have a D.va, though. Well, they did have a D.va. He dies. Barrage is pretty much a death sentence. Even if you have a D.va, it's really hard, especially if your D.va's probably not going to have full matrix. You're just hoping that you can trade a few kills for it. Here goes down. Megapin goes down. I don't think that you need a barrage there. But you did lose a tank, so you need to make something happen. I can understand why they did it. All right, New York got control of the point. So London needs to make a decision now. Do you keep fighting? Is this actually winnable? Or do you just need to get out and reset and look for an actual fight? Mano's ulting right now. New York has more people on point. I think it's just Gesture and Prophet. Prophet dies there. Gesture's getting out. All right, now we'll stop. That was kind of a cluster fight that long extended, hard to see setups. So now we have a moment to take stock of everything that each team has. New York has support ults. They don't have tank ults. They have Barrage. London has nothing but pulse. So it's the play here is you need to get that trance out, and when the trance is out, you need to live. That's super important because if you die while the trance is out, you've wasted this a lot of time. Alternatively, you can blow the trance and try to get out, or you can blow the trance and try to single a target out. The thing about trance is it is LOSable. So if your team's coordinated enough, you can bubble someone off and try to blow them up. You do have options. This is gonna be a really tough fight for London though. Like regardless, sure they can win it with skill, but I don't think they're gonna win just because the ult disadvantage. Maybe if Hureg goes aggressive and gets a Pharah duel win. We want to see where tanks are set up. Hey Lou, thanks for the sub, man. So we can't actually see where tanks are set up. But it looks like someone's touching point. That was okay. Yeah, so tanks were kind of set up on bridge. They're just getting in and they're going to be trying to force this trance now. That's a lot of pressure off of Jonak right now with Profit being dead. But they at least built up a couple ults. They're going to have Valk. They're probably going to get Monkey Ult mid-fight. You have more of a chance to win it than you did before, but you did just waste about 40% time on point. They didn't get the trance. So this is looking favorable for New York. BLB's on the hunt. Look, Pharah's discorded, which is huge. Discorded Pharah means one shot from Libero, damage boosted, plus a little bit of poke from BLB means he dies. There it is. Boom. Perfect. And that's one of the strengths of having Discord, right? Now they lose Ureg. They've Valked now. Prophet just used Pulse Bomb, probably on Mono. That's probably why it's so low. Closer's getting... The tanks are probably near here. That's probably where the fight's happening. We have no idea because the camera works following a Pharah, or following a Tracer. But tanks are probably near here, so Closer is going to be focused on point and protecting his tanks. So London's going to have to go for this res because you need the Pharah to win this fight, and then you have to figure out a way that you can get a kill regardless of trance. Either you need to burst this Zen, or you need to make him use the trance and kill someone somewhere else. Hopefully they're split enough to where the trance is ineffective. They're on the Zen now. Gesture's going to ult and try to kill. And there's the trance. Mono's here protecting. Mecho's focusing point. BLB now. Libero gets the flank play and kills the Mercy. So this is pretty much it, right? Ureg's running back on Soldier just to try to get back in time. Hagapun couldn't get the res. And he's dead now. So now it's 4 people on point. New York's Valking. They did just get a barrage kill. They still have Pulse. They still have tank ults. This is done. That's pretty much it. Interesting Nepal there. The way New York plays is very, or in this map at least, is very focused on enabling their Zen, pressuring tanks out, making it to where if they can make sure that the other team doesn't have a clean dive, then they're probably going to win the fight because their backline hits enough shots, their Tracer does enough that that they can win the fight outright, even if their Zen's getting focused. That's interesting to see because a lot of teams don't play like that. New York's one of the exceptions. London did a good job on Sanctum of how they how they held once they had the take. New York's hold, when the New York capped first, they had a really good opener, but how they held the point was kind of rocky, and then they couldn't retake off of the ult advantage. I hope to see Sombra more in the future because she is really interesting in this meta, and I hope teams put time into learning her. Very disruptive, very powerful, and you know, it's strong. It's super strong. But we'll see. We'll see how much teams actually go for it. So yeah. To recap, tank play is super important, and making sure you're ult tracking and whatnot. Good series. If you guys have questions for me later about the stuff, feel free to hit me up. I'm going to do more VOD reviews in the future. I'll try to go a little more in depth with some of this stuff on why the setups are good. This time I didn't go into the specific setups for each hero because I didn't want it to go too long. It's already been an hour and I haven't even gone like super in depth into what you can do at this point, or with all these points. But when you are reviewing, for those that are, maybe don't have a lot of experience reviewing or trying to get better at reviewing, trying to get better in general, when you're reviewing, always try to identify your win condition for the team, what the strengths of each composition are, your win condition, and under what circumstances do you engage? What are your engagement triggers? Is it a cooldown that's blown? Is it someone overextending? Is it someone low HP? Did we get poked to where it's enough to where we can engage and make it out? What kind of paths are the tanks taking? Because tanks are so important in this meta. What is the Tracer doing? Tracer has a lot of options what they can do. And it goes a lot more in depth than just what comps and what counters what. So really interesting play from New York. Interesting from London. I don't think London played this point particularly well. They played this point all right. Shrine, they didn't play it well at all. They were super uncoordinated on their dives. Their tanks got completely destroyed. That was a really good job from New York playing the comp they played there. That's not a comp they usually play. So yeah, that's it. Thanks guys for watching. I will be getting this up on YouTube and hope to do more soon. There is, so coming up, I wanted to end this before Contenders starts today, because Group A for Contenders is really close. It's the last week of Contenders North America. So both Group A and Group B will be decided in the next couple of days. Group A being decided today. It's not our group; it's a different group. And so, from what I understand, no team in Group A, no team in Group A is officially out. There are a couple teams that are officially in for playoffs, but any team can still make it in the top 4. Depending on how today goes. Is it likely? Some teams it's not super likely that they'll make it in, but it is an interesting set of matches. Tuesday is our match. If you don't know, Fusion University, we are undefeated in groups. It's a super important match for us because winner of that match determines first seed or second seed. Because we've gone to map 5s all the time, our total, even though we're 4-0, our map count's not as high because we've gone to a lot of map 5s. But we can still 5-0 and get first, 4-1 and get second. We are actually 16-1 total record score. So keep an eye on us. That's what I've been mostly working on with our Fusion guys. Drop me a follow, drop our Fusion guys a follow. So yeah, thanks for coming out, guys. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good one.